Hello. Hi, guys. My name's Yoon. I work at a multi-strategy fund called ROK Capital, based out of Seoul. We helped a couple GameFi projects like Sandbox and actually go to market in Korea. In addition to that, I co-created one of the first NFT DAOs based out of Korea called Handao. Yeah, here to speak more about the future of cross-chain NFTs as well as like layer one specific and dApp chains.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Carl Hua, investment partner at Shima Capital. Shima is a crypto native, pre-seed, seed stage focused VC fund, previously at Celsius as chief architect.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emmanuel. Regular crypto enthusiast. Until recently, I was with a startup called DC Spark for a year. And prior to that, I was with JP Morgan Chase for about 3 years. Yeah, it's great to be here to talk about the future of cross-chain NFTs. Yeah.
GM. I'm Chen. I'm the VP of Engineering at Harmony Protocol. Harmony is a layer one public blockchain. So we have a scalable blockchain with a fast transaction and a lower transaction fee. So we are running the most active and the business blockchain game on Harmony, DeFi Kingdoms. Thank you, everyone.
And you guys also have a NFT bridge, right?
Yeah, we have an NFT bridge for a long time, and as an engineering team, right? So we are looking to build the most secure and also the fast bridge across the multiple chain. So since we are talking about cross-chain, right? So I want to ask everyone in the panel, right? So what do you think the biggest challenge for all the cross-chain NFT?
I think currently where we are, given how nascent the space is, some of our biggest challenges are just the lack of proper open standards and frameworks to better interoperate. Different blockchains build NFTs quite differently. You have platforms like Ethereum that basically keep the metadata off-chain, and you have platforms like Cardano that keep metadata completely on-chain. You have the other concept around regulatory, overhead, in the sense that, okay, you have a Bored Ape. There's a lot of liquidity moving through Zcash. How do we feel about trading on Zcash with our Bored Apes? All right, what's the regulatory framework around that? So I think these are two things we might have to figure out the most. I can't tell which more than the other, but hopefully we do get there. Yeah.
Yeah, so previously at Ripple, we actually extensively looked into bridges back in 2018. So it was very early on. And even the work that we did at Celsius and now at Shima, we're still looking into bridges very extensively because we believe, well, I believe that the future is multi-chain, right? So you need to be able to interoperate. Now, one of the problems is that I believe that we don't have sufficient infrastructure to actually enable the interoperability of NFTs. Because if you actually look at the technology, right? ERC20 tokens, it doesn't do a lot beyond the value transfer and so forth. Though, if you look at NFT, it's actually a horrible name, right? NFT, non-fungible. But if you just level up and abstract it away a little bit, it's actually a claim to some sort of utility. Today, it's largely for collections, but we're seeing some very interesting utility, right? So, for example, some of the projects are actually custodying real-world assets such as watches or wine, and they're issuing NFTs representing the ownership. Now, if you want to go cross-chain or multi-chain with this type of NFTs, you run into significant problems when you use bridges that we've built today, right? The underlying reason really is because it goes beyond the meta information within the NFT. For example, if you actually send a watch to the custodian and they give you an NFT, well, guess what? You also have to pay a storage fee, right? So if they're deployed on Ethereum and they're tracking the storage fee, and based on how much debt you have with the storage provider, they could repo your NFT on Ethereum. So if you use an existing bridge and you bridge over to Solana or Avalanche, what happens then is, should you fail to pay the storage fee, they're going to repo on Ethereum, and it becomes a huge problem, right? So now you have two copies of the NFT, and the copy that's bridged over will lose value because they will repo the original copy and breaks down the system, right? So I think one of the challenges really is to abstract the bridge away from the entire ecosystem and to provide generic messaging for state replication.
Yeah, I can give a little bit more context on what we're seeing on the fundraising side as well in terms of infrastructure. Layer 0 is working with a lot of teams that we're seeing fundraise currently. In addition to that, I think, like you said, Solana, Polygon, outside of Ethereum are kind of leading the race. I think segregated liquidity doesn't really work. Perpetuals have been existed for Bored Apes on Injective as well, but it doesn't get barely any volume. A lot of it comes down to composability and not wanting to leave the ecosystem. An example, if you hold a vault or NFT in NFTX or say another DeFi primitive, you're not going to get the airdrop, right? So say if yes, I might be able to port my NFT to a different chain, but I might miss my airdrop, and obviously I think that's a huge discomfort that most people don't want to experience. In terms of games, we're seeing Polygon, Solana, as well as most people wanting to build their own chain. I think the first version of that is DeFi Kingdoms building their subnet. In addition to that, we're seeing people like Come2Us who are previously on Terra building their own Tendermint chain. They see the value in the ability to have your own validators and that economic security that comes with that. So yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing in there. I'm curious if you guys are seeing the future of cross-chain NFTs being something through games, profile pictures, music NFTs, and things like that.
Yeah, it's most likely at least through games. I mean, if we've all seen Ready Player One, then we all want to be in, experiences where it doesn't matter what platforms we use or what blockchains in this matter we use. Before I proceed, though, I'm curious, show by hands, how many of you have NFTs on more than one chain? Awesome, this is amazing. How many of you have ever interacted with the bridge? A cross-chain bridge? Okay. So it's pretty much clear, right? A lot of people have multiple NFTs on different chains, but hardly do they move these NFTs across, simply because we haven't quite figured that out yet. And much like what Carl over here, slightly highlighted, there's so many concerns to look at, especially at the protocol level. How do you ensure certain security guarantees?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about this, it's actually absurd, right? So imagine you're on AT&T as your internet provider, and then someone else on Verizon, and then before you send the email, be like, all right, I gotta go to a bridge because we're on different internet providers, right? So that just goes to show that it's super early, and there's a lot of maturing to be done to happen in this industry, right? But generally, we're seeing the shift from bridging to generic messaging, so that a whole nother layer could be created to better the user experience.
Right.
So since we talking about the cross-chain challenge, right? So I already see many people raise your hand. You have multiple NFT on different chain. So I want to offer one of my insight on the cross-chain NFT. So the biggest challenge for any cross-chain bridge, the biggest challenge is the security. So in the crypto history so far, other than the Luna crash, right? So the biggest three hack was on cross-chain. So I don't know if you still remember the Poly network, $600 million hack. Wormhole, 300 million. And the Rooney, also, I think it's 600 million, right? So the cross-chain security is one of the biggest concerns. Not just on the fungible token, also on the NFT. So I own a Bored Ape, right? So I don't want to easily bridge my ape worth more than $200,000 to another chain. What if it's lost? Then my ape will be gone. So in terms of the security, So in blockchain area, so the security coming from many different perspectives. But one of the biggest security guarantee in the blockchain is actually the decentralization. So we don't necessarily trust any single node in any blockchain, but we trust the entire system of the blockchain to guarantee the security. Otherwise, you won't put your asset, your app or Bitcoin or any Ethereum onto the blockchain, right? So that's considered your most important asset right now in the crypto world.
So I think, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're still on the infrastructure level, because I'm talking about protocol. So the security problem is still not solved completely yet. So most of the current bridge on any of the protocol are semi-trusted. So which means if any of the one of them or multiple of the bridge validator were hacked, your asset may be lost. That's exactly what happened on Poly network, on Wormhole, and also happened on Lulin. So that's why the trustless bridge will be one of the things that in the industry we should be looking to, and that's exactly what we're working as well. So to provide the trustless bridge so that you don't necessarily trust any of the validator, but you, by checking on the code, on the open source smart contract, that you will be able to safely and then confidently bridge your asset. Okay.
Right. I think what Leo is saying as well, like, effectively what a bridge is that you lock an asset or you wrap it, and then it's going to stay on that security layer that you wrap it in, and then you're going to have a derivative of it on a different chain. I know you mentioned like cross-messaging protocols, general protocols like Layer 0, which are effectively saying that we're using an omni-chain standard, and if you mint it, using this certain standard on omni-chain, then you can port it without wrapping it or locking it up, and effectively having security concerns on two sides. But yeah, I just wanted to clear that.
Yeah, I think to truly mitigate the bridging risk, which is significant, is actually, if you think about ERC20 versus ERC NFTs, ERC 1155, right? People tend to have an inherent trust with the NFT issuers. So the safest way really actually is to burn the NFT on one chain and the mint on the other, right? So then you don't go into the wrapping paradigm. And in order to do that, there's only two ways. There's actually one way, right? Which is native integration with the issuer, right? And most of the NFT issuers don't want to deal with multi-chain, right? So what we should think about is how do we make it so easy for the issuers so that they're natively multi-chain, right? And I think projects like Layer 0, right, Axelar will be able to help with this, so then you completely eliminate the need to making sure your bridge is secure, right? Because you burn on one chain and then you mint on the other, then there is only one copy, and so now your security is not dependent on the security of the bridge, which is, pretty scary if you think about it, right?
Right. To piggyback on a lot of what Leo and Kai have shared, it comes back to my first, the first thing I mentioned with regard to our difficulties in terms of open standards and frameworks. We need to get to a point whereby we have certifications for whatever blockchains you interact with. There's a reason why when you move some of your tokens over to, say, Coinbase, it takes 5 seconds, while some blockchains take 5 minutes. We should be able to assess to know, hey, is this chain, good enough? If I move this token over from, say, one network to Ethereum, how do I know that chain is not going to fork right away? All right, what are persistence guarantees? What are our security guarantees or trust assumptions around that? And beyond that, we need to have good, cryptographic technology to enhance these experiences to make us more trustless. Today we have secure multi-party computation techniques which allow you to do so much. For example, on Cardano, you have the concept of Mithra certificates, which are pretty much like stake-based threshold signatures, which once you splice it nicely with a good secure multi-party computation system, you're able to really build real trustless bridges. We haven't gotten to the part of TCP/IP for crypto yet. We hope to get there. IBC from Cosmos, they're doing a good job, but we need to have certifications for what we move and which bridges we interact with. Other than that, we still need to bring a very good application layer for a lot of users out there. so they don't really shoot themselves in the foot because not everyone is really like, a power user or like, a dev. So we need to improve the application layer as well. But other than that, we're still so early. So I'm very confident, We've got like so much technology from the 80s and 70s that we're only like, getting back to. And I think that's exciting. We can leverage that and use that for more cross-chain interoperability. Vitalik thinks that we shouldn't have cross-chain interoperability and just stay in little like clusters. I beg to differ. I think we have the potential to, reach for the stars. And, Cosmos, puts a lot of good research out there. The Celestia team puts a lot of good research out there. And I think Input Output are doing a very great job, especially with Zendoo and the Horizon network research. You're able to like look at what it looks like to handle asymmetric, symmetric sidechain systems. And that can take us really far, in my opinion.
Yeah, it looks like you have a lot of understanding of the full spectrum of all the multiple chain. Thank you for offering the insight. So actually I have, since we're talking about application, right? So as a crypto people, we are pioneer in the industry and the pioneer in the entire world, right? So we believe in the future of Web3. So other than despite the security concern, so we always have the security concern anyway. So, but what would, I want to ask everyone, right? What would be the most exciting application or future you see with the cross-chain spectrum?
Identity. The fact that I'll be able to interact with any chain, have one good, sovereign identity, a good, self-sovereign identity application that has all the information I need and is blockchain agnostic, is able to run on a good inter-blockchain communication system would be amazing. I think if I have that, I'm fine with that.
I think cross-chain should never be mentioned in the future, right? People should not even know about things happening underneath. My preference will be a really kick-ass wallet, tokens, NFTs, and that's it, right? Because if I have to worry about, like if I'm operating on Harmony or Avalanche, then we don't have the entire stack built. So I would like to see a world where we only worry about tokens, wallets, applications, and not about the interoperability, right? Because it's happening underneath. No one's talking about TCP/IP or UDP or your ISP provider because that's just part of the entire stack, right? So that's kind of my view on this.
Yeah, I completely agree actually with the identity will be the first use case for like cross-chain stuff, just because I think the Corbata player doesn't really care about what's happening on Solana effectively, but it might come down to a moment where I want to prove myself as one of the best play-to-earn players across the world, and I need to do that in a verifiable way without doxing my wallet. So potentially something like DGen Score, where I can connect multiple wallets across my Solana and different layer ones, and provably show that these are my wallets, this is what my credit score on-chain looks like, and like an on-chain resume is probably the first use case for that. Up to the point, I think, like most of the tech conversation for the founders is over-bloated in the sense that like ETH has the most users by far, Solana has volume and it's catching up. The technical challenges maybe might incentivize you to choose a new chain, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the economic incentives that the layer ones are presenting to you, whether it's huge war chests and treasuries that they can incentivize you to come build on, like I think a lot of the layer twos that are sponsoring this event are doing, in addition to like whatever ecosystem or potentially fair launch style projects, so Magic and Treasure DAO, I think they can incentivize founders, communities, ground up projects in a different way than potentially the billion-dollar layer ones can.
Yeah, no one wants to have 10 Chrome extensions representing their identity, right? So
I agree. I think for now, I think since last year, right? So we agree. I think identity is the most widely used application on the entire NFT ecosystem, right? So like everyone start to use your PFP, social media, and even Twitter start to support the PFP and verified NFT, right? So identity it's almost will be the first immediate widely used application. So in terms of identity, so we also know like I don't know if you guys read about the Jack Dorsey's latest deck about Web 5, right? So what is Web 5? So I love that Web 2 plus Web 3.
Where's Web 4?
Honestly, I think if Jack Dorsey doesn't know what Urbit is or hasn't experienced Urbit, I think he's going too fast to talk about Web 5. Experience Urbit first and come talk about Web 5.
But I love the Web 5. So maybe next we're going to have a Web 8 or whatever, right? So because that's a Web 3 plus Web 5 or Web 8.
As long
right?
as we skip 9. We always skip 9.
Why?
I don't know. Windows does it.
So Leo,
iOS does it.
actually, Jack Dorsey's vision for Web 5, Shima is lucky enough to invest into a company that's already doing that. It's called Sonar, and it's essentially what Jack Dorsey was talking about, right? And it's interesting because the vision was so similar, and I do see it happening because the identity is a huge deal today, right? Like, no one wants to copy a huge string and telling you, hey, send me the USDC to this address. No one feels good about sending crypto manually today because, you know, if you're off by a little bit or you're sending to the wrong address, there's really no way for human eyes to verify that's the correct address, right? So.
Yeah. So I think also you also mentioned about the interoperability and the standard. So that's actually, I mean, I'm always thinking from the technology perspective, right? So what can we build and to enable that? So I think for cross-chain identity, definitely the number one. But also we should think about composability, because composability and interoperability is always, from technology perspective, is the biggest strength of the blockchain technology. Because the blockchain will have an open access and the standard, which is also like public to everyone. So that's how the blockchain and Web3 differentiate from Web 2 world, right? So Web 2 world, all the big companies, they hold all the user data and they make it not interoperable. But the Web 3, so it's everything possible because all the data are open format and the standard accessible. So interoperability probably would be something like I feel would be guiding the direction for any builder into the cross-chain NFT spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, and just on the last 10 seconds or 20 seconds from my end, I think, yeah, I piggyback, I really resonate with that a lot with what you just said. And like, you know, if we can have more standards that follow, you know, the universal composability standards around the spectrum, that would really work. If we're able to get good referential implementations of various chains that we interact with, that could get us far. So yeah, we need to build that internal tech. Yeah, I mean, only 20 seconds we could ask a question.
Okay, I think like we only have like 10 seconds, but anyway, thanks everyone for coming and really
Thanks, everyone.
appreciate. So we have a huge turnout. I'm really happy on that, right? Thank you. Thank you.